when I work with trauma disorders, anything that's manifesting in current life, it's typically rooted in the childhood. Like, why do we get into domestically abusive relationships? It's somewhere that the identity starts as the child of being unworthy of appreciation, unworthy of love, unworthy of feeling nurtured, whatever it may be. And then it kind of starts manifesting on this identity level.
Absolutely. And when that again goes back to the nature of being a child, we don't have the awareness or the concept or the mental fortitude to understand all of the dynamics that are at play here. So we simply internalize things. You hear this all the time from kids saying things like, mommy and daddy are not happy. Maybe it's my fault. I realize that maybe they haven't been, like, imagine how traumatic it is for a kid to overhear the parents fighting and they say something like, this marriage has never been the same since we had kids. Boom, boom. All of the trauma is then internalized in the heart and the mind and the body of the child, right? Now, all of us as adults, if you heard somebody saying that, you'd be like, no, this place has never been the same since we hired Bruce. Then I might be like, that's a shitty thing to say. What are you talking about? Can you explain that to me? Like, maybe we need to have a chat. But if I was 6 years old, I would just cry and go into the corner and then internalize everything, right? And then we're going to now create systems where either that belief is reaffirmed, and that speaks to neuroplasticity of abuse, which is super difficult to unwind, because the more we're in it, then the stronger that narrative becomes and the harder it then becomes to unwind, right? But we don't know how to not be in it because there's this nagging pain inside of us that we can't identify. We can't figure out what it is.
Right. So if, I always say, like, the first step to healing is awareness. How do we bring ourselves to a point of awareness that this is something more than an exterior trigger, like that, we're getting into arguments or we're disorders. I'm trying to think of an example where we're in this habitual cycle. How can we recognize that the cycle is spinning and that we can step off the wheel? I think that's what we tend to come to. It's like, okay, we're in the cycle. And sometimes it takes a long time for them to realize that they're in a cycle. How can we help ourselves come to a point of recognizing, okay, we're in this loop and I want to get off the treadmill?
I think a good way to look into that is what Jung was talking about in saying that all of us have to face our shadow at some point. And that means that you have to dive in with stillness, you have to dive in with honesty, and you have to try to look at things objectively. And I think that is a step-by-step process. This is essentially what people do with therapists. They build a rapport, they build an environment of trust, of safety, of honesty. And in that, from a client perspective, they are actually cultivating a space where they feel like, today I'm going to go just a little bit deeper, and I'm going to get just a little bit closer and just a little bit more honest and just a little bit more raw, because I know that the therapist can hold me. If you're a Reiki practitioner, if you have a mindfulness practice, it's the same idea. I'm going to go just a little bit deeper in my meditation and touch that nerve just a little bit longer and sit with it if I can. It's not a race, right? This is what I'm really excited about. This is because this is what psychedelics do, like mushroom therapy, or people are doing MDMA therapy and these types of things, because they help you go in objectively, as opposed to going in with emotion and belief and story and narrative. If you can get past the fear, then you're actually looking at something objectively and seeing it for what it actually is. From a Buddhist perspective, the idea is that you are trying to go into the darkness and light the fire of the Buddha. So you're lighting a candle of truth, which really means a candle of love or stillness in the depths of your shadow. And if you can do that, and you can look at something, if you can face your fear, then all of a sudden your fear cowers away because it has no meaning anymore. Now, the gradient of trauma, that's obviously a lot easier to do if somebody stole your favorite, transformer, or you were sexually abused. Like, this is a wildly different conversation, right? But it's, I think, still the same practice of going into that space.